I'm on with Phil Battye. Hello, Phil. How we doing?
I'm good. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Now it looks to me like you're outside.
I am,
Where
yeah.
are you?
Right now, I'll show you. I'm on Parliament Square.
Parliament
There's Big Ben,
Square.
there's Churchill, there's
There's a big bus.
Westminster. I've been here for about, I think that today is day 97. So nearly 100 days now.
100 days. Right. So I would imagine you're protesting something. So before we get to that, how did it all start? Take us back to the
Um,
beginning for you.
So back to the beginning, I was a paper boy. Seeing the headlines on the papers, join the army, fight for freedom, all that stuff.
Yeah.
When the Iraq War was going on, so I joined the military. I did 3 operational tours. Left after about 7 years, and then I came back just as a regular civilian, like everyone else. I wasn't really into politics. I just thought, well, this is a bit rubbish. Why is everything a bit stupid?
Right.
And it wasn't until 2020 when they sort of locked everybody in the house, and I just had a bit of a problem with that. I felt people should have been able to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
I'm quite good with technical stuff, and I noticed the media were intentionally overinflating COVID data to try and push this sort of vaccine solution, and the government were putting everybody in a position of pain to make them more likely to accept it. And I was just very concerned by the whole thing. So I just used my tech skills to raise my voice a little bit to get the authorities' attention, and I raised my grievances. Nothing dangerous, nothing that would reach even all these new laws they brought in. And then yeah, that's kind of where it began. The government clamped down on me very quickly.
Hmm.
They put me in prison.
Put you
Told
in
me I
prison
could
for your voice, for
basically,
speaking out.
yeah, I'd been getting harassed by police and authorities, and I tried to speak to my local MP about it, about that and my political solutions that I've been providing. And yeah, I sent him an email, and they arrested me for malicious communication. There was nothing malicious in the email. It was just, I mean, I was a bit
Really?
angry, I guess, but I didn't swear, I didn't threaten him. But it turns out the politicians have their own private police force called FCAT, which specialise in politically detaining people here in Britain. So they
That's
put
like
out
a Russian Stasi sort of thing.
It's exactly like that. Yeah, they put out a warrant for my arrest. Once I was arrested, they charged me with malicious communication, and
Right.
then when they put me in front of the court the next morning, they sent an email to the court saying that they want me remanded in prison so I could be transferred to a forensic facility, and that's what happened. I spent 6 months on remand in prison, and then I was transferred to Rampton, a high secure
Rampton.
facility. Do you know Rampton?
Well, I have a history of working in NHS mental health, and
Yeah.
I've heard of Rampton. I've never worked there, but I've worked in medium low, secure, and I've worked in acute forensic. You don't seem like the type of guy I'd encounter on a forensic ward.
No, I mean that's part of the reason I'm free. I mean I've got no history of violence. There was no criminal record until they sort of did this, and from what everyone around me could see, there was nothing wrong with me. While I was in prison, medical staff were getting involved, saying this is wrong. Like this man doesn't need to go to Rampton. Not even sure he's got a mental health problem. But they transferred me there anyway. For those people who don't know, Rampton's a high secure facility.
Yeah, I probably should have
And
thrown that in there for those that don't
yeah,
know. So
yeah,
essentially, you were put in a high secure mental health facility as a, what shall we say, a political prisoner. So they put
basically, yeah.
Tommy Robinson in prison in solitary for God knows how long, I can't remember off the top of my head, and they put you in a forensic high secure unit.
Yeah,
That's
and they
mad.
told me I'd be there for the rest of my life.
That's mad.
It's really bad,
Absolutely mad.
yeah. But yeah, fortunately, the whole system isn't corrupt. Just some people at the top, and then they give orders down the way.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
I got there, a lot of the staff didn't see anything wrong with me, and I was being declared unfit for trial because the whole thing was just rigged. Um, and I managed to convince some nurses to convince a doctor to carry out a Pritchard test on me. He did the Pritchard test, clarified that I'm definitely fit for trial, and that he doesn't see anything wrong mentally either. And then it was just a matter of time until I was going to be released. But the judge didn't like it. My own legal defence was asking for that to be thrown out of court, But yeah, I had to really battle my way out of there. But I thought that stuff doesn't happen in Britain. So
No,
when it
that's the
happened,
stuff you,
I was
you expect to
surprised.
hear of, like Russia and
Russia and China,
Korea and
yeah,
China, places like that. Like the horror
exactly,
stories from places like that. That's mad.
exactly, and they're doing it right here in Britain. So that's sort of what really got my back up.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, it was a shut up or else situation. Like I tried to file complaints with the police because they were using a lot of misinformation to try and make me sound more dangerous than I was, to make it sound like there was something mentally wrong, which
Yeah.
there clearly wasn't. There was a lot of false and fabricated information going around. And I was just raising complaints. I deserve a clear record, like I've not done anything wrong. And I started getting threats of shut up or else.
Who were
And
those threats coming from?
it's hard to say. Some sort of covert entity. I've heard some people who's received similar treatment call it street theatre.
Street
Um,
theatre.
Street theatre. It comes across from like a it appears to be a random member of the public. But obviously, if you were to try and confront this member of the public, they'd be like, "I don't know what you mean by that," and you end up getting sectioned. So you just kind of got to take it. But yeah, I got a lot of threats. In fact, the day before I was arrested and put in prison, um, I was in a camper van because I've lived in camper vans just to be more ergonomic with my finances. Um, and someone walked past my van and said, "You're going to be arrested, taken to prison, and stabbed to death." And I was
What?
like, "What is that?" And then the next day, I was arrested and taken to prison. Obviously, the third one didn't happen, but yeah, I think it's quite clear. The only people that had that information to say I was about to be arrested and remanded were the people requesting it, and that was FPAC. So I'm pretty sure it's the British authority doing these things.
That's bonkers. So you were
I
in the
also
service.
understand that like, the mainstream media are nowhere near this, and they
No.
avoid this story like the plague.
Okay, so take us back a bit. Let's rewind a little bit to your service. Where were you stationed? Tell us a bit about that.
So I was in the Royal Signals. I passed out of training in Basingbourne as the best recruit, which is obviously something I'm very proud of. And then I was stationed in Blandford, where I learned to do signalling. And then I went to Two Signal Regiment in York. Um, when I got there, I was 17 years old, and I was on. I turned 18 in August, and I deployed to Afghanistan in November. So I was still very young on my first deployment. Sorry, to Iraq. I spent about 3 months in Kuwait, and then I went into Iraq to essentially build the forward HQ for our forces to start handing over to the Americans on October
Right.
13th. And then after that, I sort of came back to the UK. I got promoted, and then I deployed to Afghanistan with the Gurkhas. I had quite a key role there that I can't say too much about. Um, and then yeah, did very well. Came back to the UK, moved to a base in Catterick, and then I deployed a third time. So would be my second tour of Afghanistan. And there again, I guess I can't say too much, but
No, don't
I
don't
was
put yourself in any hot water. No way.
yeah, I was repairing quite a vital piece of military equipment that had been essentially broken since day one. So about 8 years it had been broken. And I just excelled and I managed to get the equipment working. I got lots of praise, but my first child was born while I was out there, and I was a bit of a yes man. I put my hand up to deploy a lot, and I was patrolling down like some of these places I had to go to fix stuff. Like you'd patrol down streets called like IED Alley, and I mean nothing happened,
IED alley
but the fact
sounds
it's got
dangerous.
that name, you know. So yeah, like
To be
it's
fair, me and a friend, we used to walk to work when we worked together quite a few years ago. We used to walk down a street. I won't say where it is, but we used to call it Dog Shit Alley.
yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly.
and there was always poo everywhere. So,
Yeah. So, but anyway, it was quite dangerous for me. So I figured if I needed to choose between being a father or being a soldier, and I chose to be a father. And my boss at the time, my officer commanding, literally offered me everything under the sun to stay in the military. He offered me promotions, postings of my choice. He was saying like my family could come and move on to base even though we weren't married yet. He literally offered me everything, and I had a fantastic last report from the military before I left. So yeah, I had a great service.
Good, good. So, how do you get from service to where you are now?
It was COVID. Like they just locked everybody in the house, and because I study, like I'm a bit of a geek. I make a point of being a student every day.
Yeah,
And about 2018, I started studying sort of economics and stock market phenomena because, like a lot of people, I wanted to become rich in the stock market. But I understand that you can't just go into it and become rich. You need to
no, it's not
understand the
that's it.
inner workings of it. So I started studying the inner workings of it, and I've been studying for about 2 years, like really studying hard. Like I'm talking 17 hours a day, study, study, study. And I learned loads about the markets and the way they move, the reasons they move, the sort of forces that are at play over the markets. And sort of late 2019, I don't know if you remember, but Donald Trump started an economic war with China.
Right.
Right. So I think this is important context that everyone seems to forget about. So
Is this
Donald
with the
Trump started.
tariffs?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, he was trying to sort of get what he's doing now, basically, but he was trying to do it in 2019, and then I just saw like a huge dip in the market, but like I'm talking sort of trillions and trillions of dollars just vanished from the markets, and then all the other algorithms and sort of people and investors and hedge funds, they all bought it back up, which meant nobody knew why this money was being taken out. There was no reasoning for it. So everyone saw the cheap price, bought it back up. And I just thought, in my head, I thought, well, if somebody can withdraw that amount of money in such small numbers, they know something the rest of us don't.
Yeah, of course.
So I was predicting a market crash, sort of late 2019. And then early 2020, when the rumors of a pilot having a virus started. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. But I kind of tied the two together and was like, someone's expecting something huge right now. This virus has emerged from China after Trump started an economic war. We are in serious economic doo doo. So that's when I sort of triggered out. I actually started triggering algorithms in sort of mid February time, and I studied sales as well. Countdowns are a very good way of getting people's attention. If you put sort of a timer up and you don't explain what the timer means, everybody wants to know what happens when it hits zero. So
Yeah.
I started a 21-day countdown, which pretty much got to zero about the time of the first lockdown. I didn't know they were going to do a lockdown. I just sort of did a timer to get people's attention and for a small amount of time so that I could explain to the authorities what I'd seen, why I was concerned, because I don't know if you know, but market crashes directly linked with riots. So whenever, and you can check this in your own time, look through history. Whenever there's a huge market crash, whenever that market plummets, riots erupt everywhere, and there's no direct link between these two things, but undoubtedly they happen at the same time. So I was concerned, tried to get the authorities to pay attention and avoid everything that happened from 2020, 21, and 22. Um, and they just targeted me instead.
Okay, so from there you ended up doing your current activism, is that right?
Basically, yeah, not in this form, but I started solving political problems. Because once I'd given out the warning to the authorities, I'd done what I needed to do. But it's not like they just wandered off, they just sort of kept monitoring me. And I'm like, why are they monitoring me? So I thought, well, I'll make the most of it. I'll share some political solutions with them because I find politics quite easy. I mean, with an engineering background, like it's just problem, find the root cause, solve the root cause, you get the solution. So I started solving things like the homeless crisis. I think it's a very simple thing to solve, very easy to solve. Cost of living and food shortages and things like that. I started actively producing solutions for them, and that's when the authorities really came down on me. And then sort of I think it was they first tried to detain me in late 2020, about October 2020.
Right.
And they succeeded in I think it was February 2021. But then yeah, actually putting me in prison was August 2022. Um, so yeah, I was just solving problems.
Okay, so give us an insight. How would you solve the cost of living?
Cost of living comes in a variety of forms. I think first of all we need to address what people's expenses are. Everyone spends roughly £1,200 a month on average on their bills. That's their cost of living. And if you break that down, you've sort of got about 700 quid rent or a mortgage. You've got 120 quid council tax. You've got sort of 120 quid gas and electric and things like that. That 120 quid gas and electric, you can run a government scheme to put solar panels on the roof of everybody's house. I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but it will reduce the cost of their energy bill. Whatever the cost reduction is, you just don't take it off the energy bill straight away. You get them to keep paying their original price. This is before they hiked energy prices. You get them to keep paying whatever they're paying for energy. They pay it to the government now because they're generating the energy for free. And then once the cost of the panels are paid off, then you sort of release them from it. They've got solar panels on their roof that are all bought and paid for, and now they've got free electricity.
See, that would work to some degree. I mean, I'm not sure where I stand on the solar panel thing personally, but it's not about my opinion. But that's gonna, if say that worked. Let's just hypothesize for a minute that that worked, that your idea worked. British Gas aren't going to be happy. Eon aren't going to be happy. Hell, Octopus Energy might not be happy because you're not paying them anymore for that service. And
On
these
the
are big companies with deep
Still need
pockets.
these companies to manage it, but I think the people are more important than these companies. If these companies are so good at business, they shouldn't care. They should be able to adapt and adopt themselves to other aspects. If they need us to be in pain for them to survive, maybe it's best they don't survive. You know, like for the sake of a few companies, compared with 68 million people, I'd put the 68 million people first. I mean, that's
Okay.
just one aspect as well. I mean, food is another huge expense that we pay. Eating healthy is very expensive. And we've got all these. I'll just show you where I'm at now. We've got all these sort of little bushes that run at the side of paths and stuff. Now, when I was a child, we used to go around picking blackberries, and we'd take them to grandma's house, and we'd make a blackberry pie. I don't know if you remember those days, but those bushes are almost all gone now. I'd like to see them come back. We can plant these little bushes all across little roadsides and stuff. Kids could eat little bits of fruit on their way to school and stuff. And we could take the pensioners who currently are dealing with isolation issues and they're quite lonely, bring them into town hall, make little maps of where all these little patches are, and they can go around in the little communities and make sure everything's healthy.
Actually, you mention it. I didn't have blueberries, but coming home, I used to cut through a cornfield, and some of the corn found its way into my backpack more than once on the way
Yeah,
home.
100%.
I'm sure the farmers would have been happy.
Well,
But no, that happened when in my youth. No, no, I get what you mean. So wherever there's greenery, you would have us have fruit trees and things like that and
not
bushes.
not everywhere. It needs to be managed to avoid to ensure pest control. But realistically speaking, when you start introducing things like berries into your community, you start getting more birds, right? If you've got more birds, you get less mice and rats because the birds will also start hunting. You've got cats that will come out looking for the birds and also the mice and the rats. The birds can get away, the mice and the rats can't. And the birds can help make sure these vegetable patches are managed and maintained as well and sort of pick out any. For example, if you were to plant potatoes are quite a dangerous thing to plant in the community. You'd need things like birds around and stuff like that to be able to pick out loose potato to make sure you don't get worms. But it's not a simple, straightforward thing to do. But if managed correctly and crops are rotated in a reasonable, effective manner, realistically, you could have free food growing at the side of the road, and literally kids could be eating that on their way to school.
Okay, so on to the next one then. The homelessness crisis. How would you
Yeah.
solve that?
Have you seen the containers on the back of container ships? You must have
Yeah,
seen
they
them on
build
the boat.
houses out of them in America and places like that.
That's what we're going to say. Yeah. So they're stackable.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you divide it up into four, put a front door on each section, you've got 4 rooms per container. You throw in some insulation, cladding, bit of electrical wiring, bit of plumbing, plumb them all from the back, connect them to a central source. Bed, toilet, sink, shower, internet connection. Um, that can then be mounted on the back of a truck, right? It can be taken anywhere in the country, dropped off the truck, and they're very easy to stack, right? They're very stable. They're not going to blow over in the wind.
No,
They're
no,
very
no.
easy to plumb. They're very modular. You can move them somewhere else when you're done with them. It works out about 11 grand per container. So to get the same housing level that we have through our current plan, which is to use hotels and temporary accommodations, that costs us 2.3 billion a year. If we had containers instead, it would cost roughly 700 million full stop, and that's an all-in cost. So
You could
it's
probably use
2.3
them for
billion pounds a
the
year.
use
Sorry.
them for. You could probably do, instead of putting up like the boat migrants or migrants, whatever term people are using these days. The people that come across the channel in the boats, instead of putting them in hotels,
Right.
you could put them in something like that, maybe. I
And you
mean,
can
yeah,
put that.
it's not 4 star, but it's got all their basic amenities, hasn't it? And like in
Exactly.
France, you could have it near a warehouse or inside of one, and
Or
just
in the
make
middle
sure
of an
it's
army camp
managed.
with a big electric fence around it.
If that's what
You
you
can
choose to
move
do.
them. You can move them is the point. You can adapt it. But I think the best part about that solution is yes, we can bring them into the areas where the homeless people are, give them a bed for the night, give them an address so they can get a bank account. We can do all these things. It does solve the homeless crisis, but when I try to solve stuff, I try to go over the top with it. And if we were to build excess of these containers, bearing in mind that they'd be government owned, when something like the Edinburgh Fringe is on, or download festivals happening, or any of the many things that involve people camping outside in a tent, the government can rent these things to these festivals and make money back. And instead of taking our tax money, they can make their money from businesses who can then rent those to their clients. Instead of just leaving it all up to business to make all the money and solve all the problems, the government can solve the problems, profit from it, and alleviate our tax burden in the process.
Okay, so that's three different solutions to three different problems then.
I mean, I
Um,
could keep going all day. Have you got any more? Anything else you need to say?
okay, how would you stop the boats? There you go. That's a question that keeps coming up. Politicians can't seem to
Exactly.
do it or answer it.
So, for some reason, I think it's important to look at what the politicians are doing. They're not trying to stop boats. Like, I don't know why everyone's acting like they're trying to stop boats because they're not. They're glamorizing it. Like, they don't put homeless people in five-star hotels, but they'll put these guys in five-star hotels,
Well, they don't
knowing
put
that these
veterans in
guys.
either, do they?
Exactly. But they know that these guys are going to do little social media videos that they are going to then send those videos to people back home. And everyone's going to go, wow, it's the promised land. And then get on a boat. Like deterrent needs to be an aspect of it. Like if the accommodation was suitable, but not glamorous, people are going to go, well, it's why would I want to be in a little hut there when I can be in a little hut here?
Hmm.
Additionally, we've got a lot of issues with the safety concerns. So I accept that some of these people are asylum seekers. Like I accept that some of them are
Yeah, yeah,
fleeing
absolutely.
extreme Islamic views and stuff like that. But some of them are also trying to spread Islam. Some of them are angry about things that we've done in their country in the past, and they're coming for revenge. This is real. So we need to make sure we're not inviting anybody who's dangerous to the British public onto British soil because we don't have to give asylum to somebody who's a risk to the British public, no matter
No.
how much threat there is to their life. So we can, first of all, accept the moment they enter this country and claim asylum. Yes, we have to process their asylum claim, but we can also immediately criminalize them for an illegal border entry. So if you were to do anything criminal, first thing the police are going to do is take your fingerprints, take your
Oh,
screenshot, right?
it appears I'm having some technical issues.
This
I can
happens.
still
This
see you.
happens.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So yeah. First of all, they commit a crime, so we can take fingerprints, we can do biometrics, which includes that mugshot.
Yeah.
Right now, this is the 21st century. We are a first world country with some of the most sophisticated intelligence means on earth. That's reality. Facial recognition is a thing. I mean, your phone does it when you unlock your phone. So
Well, they
imagine
were
if you
planting. Was it a vet Cooper not so long ago? Was planting these facial recognition vans around for the public safety.
yeah, she shouldn't be doing that. That's illegal.
Well, they managed to get it through, didn't they?
Yeah,
for
they're not all
using the
quite
safety of
like
the public as the reason.
yeah,
Much like the online safety bill was there to stop kids seeing porn, but then blocked anything political to anyone under 18.
they just lie, don't they?
Wow,
But
this is
yeah,
it.
if we run facial recognition over these people, we can scan the entire internet and find out exactly who every single one of them is, exactly what their history is, and if they are a risk to the British population, we just go right, pick a destination where you're going because you're not staying here, and
No.
we just get them on the first flight out.
Okay, so what brings you to your 97th day in Parliament Square?
I'd like to police the politicians. I think we have a serious lack of integrity in UK governance. Um, I mean, we see the 650 politicians, and we have a couple of dozen of them cycle in front of our faces, and we learn their names, and they're in and they're out, and then the next one comes in, and then they're out, and we never really get to see that the other 100,000 civil servants operating behind the scenes with full-time jobs, constantly making these decisions and doing the work to put them in place. Um, I think it's about time we have a permanent police force that polices them, so that when they're carrying out human rights breaches, they get stopped. It would have been nice if I had somebody I could call when they put me in prison for the rest of my life because they breached my human rights. You know, they just what they did was despicable and shouldn't have happened in this country.
No.
For me to go through the process, I had to put in a police complaint. It gets ignored. I put in another one, another one, another one. It gets buried under a mountain of reference numbers. Every time they call me or I have to call them to chase it, I get even more reference numbers. And then it goes over to the IOPC and they do nothing. And then I'm just sat there going, well, the last option is court action. And then I look at the court system and I'm like, well, that's corrupt as well. So realistically speaking, I think we need a police force to essentially hold them accountable. And
No,
then
no,
once
I
they
get that,
hold people
actually.
accountable, the rest will start behaving.
So, you would just make them stick to their word and make them accountable for their actions. Ironically, it came out this week. Last week I think we're on Tuesday, so it would have been last week. Um, Jeremy Kyle wants to be an MP for Reform. Can you imagine Jeremy Kyle going into the House of Commons and demanding a lie detector test?
I demand lie detector tests. I like the idea of lie detector tests.
Or
That
Boris
would bring
Johnson,
people
you are
together.
not the father, like, or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
God,
I mean,
that'd be a
I
massive
like.
shake up in politics. That.
Yeah, I'd like to see lie detector tests. I'd also like to see truth serums. I don't know if you know about them, but that exists. You can inject somebody. You've got to be careful because they also become very suggestible. But there are various chemicals you can use on somebody that makes them tell the truth. Realistically speaking, we can't do that to politicians because it's human rights breaches. Um, but yeah, I'd like to see some lie detector tests.
Yeah. Do you do you think the current government is working for the British public?
No,
Okay. So when it comes to the next election, who are you putting your money on?
I wouldn't put my money on any of them.
Really? Okay. So you're not
Well,
a fan of the Conservatives or Reform or Lib Dems or
it's
the Greens or
it's more that I'm not a fan of the puppet show. It's just a puppet show, and we can divide the British public into multiple different political opinions, which will align with one of those leaders that are operating in Westminster. Um, but I don't believe any of those leaders have their constituents' best interests at heart. I believe they're
okay.
just there to give us somebody to vote for. Like realistically, if we're a democracy, why do we have a very finite selection of people we're allowed to vote for?
I think in private conversations I've had, and I won't say who with on camera, but I've often said if democracy is true, so say if we lived in a true democracy, it wouldn't just be the vote for the politician or the so-called leader. It would be we'll have a vote on I don't know support for Ukraine. We'd have a vote on do we recognise Palestine, but or do we support Israel or do we do this or are we going to war with that? Like they would, in my mind, a democracy. The way I've always been educated and the way I've always read about democracies is it's the vox populi, it's the voice of the people.
Exactly.
But all it comes down to is now the people get to pick one person who makes all the decisions, rightly or wrongly, and 4 years later they have a golden parachute. Thanks for the memories.
Exactly. It's a rolling republic. It's not a democracy.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't seem to fit into what I would define as a democracy. The only this ambulance I've just seen go past.
Yeah, I
Um,
think a lot around here.
all I can really think of that's democratic, and even that's a loose term, is the voting. And to be fair, when you look at Labour getting in this time around, I don't even think they won by a huge majority. Not really.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
where do you?
Well, how about
What's your opinion of? Actually, while we're on that, what's your opinion of Davos over Westminster Keir Starmer? Because he seems to don't give a monkeys about the UK. It seems, but he definitely
no, but
pledged allegiance to Davos.
yeah, I don't think it would matter who's in that seat. So, for example, Keir Starmer in his election campaign, I'm going to take it just out of that topic for a moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But but during his election campaign, he said 99% of convicted paedophiles don't see the inside of the prison cell. And then he's been elected. And then once he's in power, he says the prisons are too full. We're going to release the pedos. So what that's displaying there is one fraud under the fraud 2006 Act, criminal offence, 3 years in prison. But obviously that's not going to happen. But what we're also seeing is he has an opinion that many of us agree with, and then as soon as he's in power, he does something completely different. I don't think it's Starmer making the decisions, and I don't think it would matter if you had any political person in that seat. I think once they're in that seat, somebody else makes the decision and they just vocalize it.
That'd explain why for so long people have said the uni party, because whoever's there is just the figurehead. Someone else is, like you say, pulling the strings. And not to get too conspiratorial about it, someone sent me an article a couple of years ago with the WEF saying, all of your leaders are part of our sort of World Economic Forum thing. And when you Google it, actually, quite a lot of them are part of it. It's something like out of that Hydra thing from James Bond, where they sort of infected everything with the leaders. Do you see that Daniel Craig movie? They've all got
Yeah,
like a special ring with a snake on it.
yeah.
Yeah, sort of like
I think
that
it is
sort of
like
thing.
that.
Hmm?
I mean, for example, have you heard of the Freemasons? Without getting too much into conspiracies, you've heard of the
I
Freemasons.
have, but I don't know much about it. I think it's just a bit of a
Um,
boys' club, isn't it?
it is a boys' club, but it's a boys' club with very powerful MPs, judges, journalists. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like you never hear the Freemasons on mainstream news. You know, if someone's a member of Al Qaeda, the news will tell you. If someone's a member of Oxfam and they do something, they'll tell you. But if someone's a Freemason, just silent. Everybody across the whole board. The Freemasons have been outlawed in Russia and China for political manipulation.
Really?
And the
Okay.
Freemasons are very active across the whole of Europe and America. So it would make sense that they're carrying out political manipulations here and that they're all part of a boys' club. And one of the rules of their boys' club is that they've got to put each other before everybody else. So, for example, when Jimmy Savile was out doing what he did, nobody cared about any of the victims. You know, nobody reported on it, nobody
Was Savile
investigated.
part of that boys' club then?
From what I've researched, he was part of the lodge in Leeds.
Right. Okay.
But there's no credible evidence because that's what happens when there's a power that runs the whole thing. But realistically speaking, I see no reason why we shouldn't just outlaw it. Like I've never heard of any union in the UK having power inside Westminster, inside courtrooms, inside police stations. That's espionage, you know?
But by that rationale, a lot of the members of Labour are part of the Fabian Society. So would that be outlawed as well?
Absolutely. I think if you are in any form of public office, your loyalty should be to the people, not to any sort of club. You know, well, I've got these friends over here that said we want it this way. We'll just do that. No, you are an imposter. You are literally in your job to serve somebody who's outside that thing, who does not have everyone's best interest at heart. It's a criminal offence.
Right.
So,
So
so yeah.
just looking behind you, we've got a TikTok, an X, a YouTube, and a Scannable. Is that where people can find your work? Is it?
Basically, yeah. I do most of my work on TikTok just because it's Chinese and I don't get suppressed there. I get suppressed everywhere else. But yeah, TikTok, I managed to find my feet. So because I'm moving so quick, you know, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I live stream every night at 9 p.m.
Okay.
And discuss politics. And I invite people on to tell me what they think the problems are. For two reasons. One, if I've got a solution for it, it's uplifting for them and reassuring for them to hear it because people are struggling
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when they're thinking about politics. They're having mental breakdowns. But also, if anybody's got a concern that I haven't heard of or solved yet, I want to hear it so I can think about it and start working on an answer to fix it.
Okay. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up. All right,
Yeah, and I'm
Phil.
going to check
Thanks
out
for
the
your work.
videos. You'll like the solutions.
No, that's
Um,
it.
Before you wrap it up, though, you mentioned democracy,
Yeah,
and you feel like we don't really have a democracy anymore.
correct.
So, how would you feel about this? Now, just forget about what they said about digital ID for a second, because it's horrible,
It
right?
is.
That is some control measure that we don't need. But in order to have a real democracy, we do need to be able to identify people on the internet as so that there's one vote per person. There's no imposters coming in, and nobody's voting more than they should. But if we can achieve that, it's actually very easy to create a democratic platform where people can go on, take a look at what's being discussed, and give their vote in either direction. Um, but yeah, like, what do you think of that? Do you think that's a good idea, or would you rather just do something different?
I'm a big believer in privacy. I'm a big advocate for things like that. So, in my
As am I.
opinion, I think the digital ID is a bad thing. I don't understand this rhetoric of it will stop immigration. Tony Blair tried to pull that one, and no one bought it back then. Keir Starmer's just repackaged it and put a brand new label on it. It seems. I think it's a way of monitoring people. I think Bev Turner did a bit on GB News actually, where she goes into quite a lot of detail about it in her monologue. I think I have a driver's license, I have a birth certificate, I have a passport. You do not need anything else when I go to vote. As long as
That's
I can
fair.
show my driver's license and my birth certificate, and you can verify they're real, like and not fakes, that's all that matters. I don't really. I use postal votes because, given the nature of my work, it is easier. But if you're not on the electoral roll, your vote shouldn't count.
I agree. I
That's
agree.
that's my
Um,
my simple solution to it.
so right now we've got a huge issue with privacy because pretty much every company in the world is capturing data on a finite degree. Data is actually now more valuable than gold.
It is.
Uh, it's horrendous how much work has gone into it. The data gets captured, turned into psychological profiles on every individual. That psychological profile is then used to manipulate that individual for a variety of reasons, sometimes political, sometimes just to sell them stuff. But that's something that we need to address. Now, we all in the UK, not across the world, but in the UK, we have a right to privacy.
Yeah.
Um, so don't you think it's a good idea for us to stop these companies? I mean, they're breaching human rights by gathering this information. Shouldn't we criminalize it formally?
Well, the data gathering.
Yeah. It
The problem is no one ever reads the T's and C's. They always click the box and click agree. No one ever reads the T's and C's, do they? It's the same on apps and stuff. I'm sure. I've got my location turned off on my phone all the time because unless I'm using maps, it doesn't need to be on. And when I look through it, it had like the microphone and the camera turned on. I was like, well, no, that can be turned off. What you don't need that. I think technology is good, but progress in technology for the sake of it isn't really anything beneficial. And someone somewhere is going to be harvesting that for God knows what reason. I'm
yeah.
not, in my opinion, I can't
Who
prove
then
it.
gets
It's
that
just what I
job back
think.
to?
I think we should have a simpler life, but where technology fits in. Not
Yeah.
we have a technological life where we fit in.
That's where governance comes into it. I mean, our government is supposed to keep us safe. Um, I don't know if you know, but for example, if you go to the GB News website, I'm going to single them out. It's not just them; it's everyone.
Yeah,
But especially media websites right now, they've got this option when you go on. It says cookies. It says you can either accept all cookies and continue,
that's right.
or reject cookies and pay to access the website. Right?
That's right.
Most people just hit accept. Now, see when you accept those cookies, it's actually like hundreds and hundreds of pieces of information it's capturing, and it's sending it out to hundreds, even thousands of different companies. Some of that information, for example, is your battery life. It will tell the website what your battery life currently is, how quickly it's depleting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And that piece of information is used to do what's called fingerprinting on the internet. So based just on all that little bit of meta information that it's gathering, it's more than just your battery life. It's like your if you're using iOS, what um, version of iOS you're using, what hardware's in your device, all the tiny granular detail, and that's used to fingerprint you so that they can identify you as soon as you hit that accept button. So, like, I mean, we've got like GB News doing that right now. You know, Reform UK don't seem to have a problem with it. The Conservatives don't have a problem with it. Labour don't seem to have a problem with it.
No.
Lib Dems, Green, nobody seems to have a problem with this. But that is literally all that tiny information that people have no reason to have is being used to identify you, and then following that to manipulate you. Like, I don't know. I just feel like we should be policing that.
You know what? That is food for thought, and that is a good place to end it. So, thank you,
Fair
Phil.
enough. One review. Thank you very much for getting in touch.
Take care.